Chapter 50. Treadon Nelson. Treadon stared at the blank paper on his desk. He thought his mom had been joking, but she'd been nothing but serious. He'd gone to bed without another word, spent the rest of the early morning hours tossing and turning. In the end, he was grateful that he had an excuse to get up and move. Laying there felt like torture. A hand landed on his shoulder. He was surprised when he looked up into the face of Mr. Ashcroft. "Don't let it get you down. Losing a football game isn't the end of the world." He spoke with sincerity. Football? Treadon's mind struggled to break out of his foggy stupor. "I know it's hard to see right now, but it's just one game. You've got your whole life ahead of you, and with what I've seen of your work ethic, you have the potential for great things. You know what you want and how to work hard to get it. Don't give up. You can do anything you want." "Anything I want?" Treadon tilted his head. "Sure," Mr. Ashcroft said, motioning toward the windows. "The sky's the limit. If you see something you want, you've got to keep at it until you achieve it. You'll always have setbacks. The person who comes out on top is the one who gets up after a loss and sets his sight on the next game. I've seen that persistence in you. You've got a bright future, Mr. Nelson." Mr. Ashcroft returned to the front of the room and wrote an equation on the board. Treadon stood up. Mr. Ashcroft turned around and nearly dropped his smart pen. "Is everything okay?" Mr. Ashcroft asked. "You're right," Treadon said, his chest feeling lighter. "Thanks, Mr. Ashcroft." He picked up his bag and walked out of class. He moved down the hall, decision feeling as good as a full night's sleep. He had something he wanted, Ellie. He just had to go after her, let her know his choice. Treadon was halfway across the parking lot when something caught his eye. A familiar Harley leaned on its kickstand near the entrance to the football field, in the middle of the sidewalk. Treadon changed directions and headed up the side street between the gym and the football field. He thought he'd check the locker rooms, but then he saw a lone figure on the bleachers. "Jaren?" Treadon crossed through the gates onto the track. He ran up to Jaren from the other side of the waist-high fence. "Dude, what happened to you? You jumped out of a 5-story window and just disappeared. Rachel's going crazy, and I'm sorry about your dad. Are you okay?" Jaren sat on the bottom level of the bleachers, staring at the field with a blank expression. His leg was propped up, balanced on the bench in front of him. The deep lines across his forehead were the only signs of sorrow Jaren let slip through his facade. "Aren't you supposed to be in class?" Jaren raised an accusing eyebrow. "Were you seriously going to skip without me? I don't need your permission to skip class. Just because I never would have done it alone before, doesn't mean a guy can't change. I've grown up." Jaren smiled. "About time. So where are you headed now, that you're all grown up?" "I'm going to find Ellie." "She's missing again?" "No." Treadon looked down, wishing he had a better answer. "She's leaving. And you didn't catch the hint. I thought you were good at reading people." "It wasn't a hint." Treadon wanted to hit something. He wished he'd reacted faster last night. "I waited too long. I hesitated." "The death of fools." Treadon sighed. Abigail still saw him as a child. Gabe didn't believe he was strong enough. Even Jaren could see his weaknesses. He had hesitated. He had anxiety, and if he was honest, he feared facing those monsters again. But he would do it for her. "Gabe doesn't think I'm the right person for her, and she's not sure I'm willing to do what it takes. But I'm ready to prove them all wrong." "This is the most intense game of playing hard to get I've ever seen." Jaren kept a stoic face of disinterest. "That's the understatement of the year." There was a lull in their conversation, and Jaren's attention went somewhere else. His eyes raked the football field. "Seriously, man," Treadon said, wanting to reach out to his friend, but reading his need for space. He stayed on the other side of the fence, leaning closer. "What happened to you? How can you even explain what happened last night?" "I can't," Jaren said. He took a deep breath, like he was trying to bench press his max. "I can't explain anything. All I know is that I need some answers." "You're leaving too." Reading Jaren's emotions left an empty space inside Treadon's chest. "Don't sound so heartbroken. You've always known I'm straight. It never would have worked out between us." "I'm serious. Where are you going?" Jaren looked at a laptop sitting next to him on the bleachers. "I've got some things to figure out." Treadon saw the answer in Jaren's eyes. The hunger. The curiosity. "You know where to find your mom." "Will you cut that out?" Jaren squinted into the sun. "Yeah, I want to see my mom." "Don't you want to wait until graduation?" "Nah, graduation is for unimportant people who don't have fathers who were rich, evil supervillains. I'm set for life." Jaren flipped Gabe's keys around his finger. "I'll give you a ride," Treadon said. "Gabe will hunt you down and skin you alive if you take his bike." A car approached the back of the school. Probably Coach, bringing in the equipment for practice. He ignored the slam of a car door. Jaren rocked his head back and forth. Being seen in your mom's Pontiac or being hunted by a guardian. He lifted one hand and the other like he was testing the two ideas on a scale. I'll take my chances with the bike. Gabe's a cuddly teddy bear on the inside. I wouldn't let him catch you saying that. Treadon shivered, thinking of Gabe's scowl of disappointment last night. Say what? Jaren said. That he's a soft, squishy man wearing a muscle suit that wishes he was as cool as me? Jaren jutted his chin forward. His eyes looked past Treadon. Treadon had been too focused on Jaren to notice the footsteps weren't headed out to the football field. Several people were approaching them from behind. Treadon whirled. Gabe stopped a few feet from them, eyebrows raised at Jaren's insults. And behind him, Ellie. Rachel and Abigail came forward and sat on the bleachers behind Jaren, like they were ready to watch the game. Rachel put her arms around Jaren, and he leaned into her shoulder. Treadon only had eyes for Ellie. The breath rushed from his lungs. She hadn't left yet. I thought you'd already be gone. Ellie shrugged as she passed Gabe and stood directly across the fence from Treadon, hands behind her like a sergeant doing an inspection. Do you remember how I said we'd make a good team? Yes? Treadon could barely find the air to push the word out. I think we'll be stronger together, even with the incomplete bond. Ellie took a breath. This was a test, and Treadon wanted to pass with every fiber of his being. I don't want to run anymore. I ran away when I was 8, and I've never stopped running. Going with Gabe now, leaving to hide, feels like doing the same thing. This time, I want to stand and fight. Fight? Treadon asked. The impulse to protect her flared up in his chest. He was her guardian, and his job was to keep her safe, but that wasn't what she wanted anymore. How are you going to do that? I don't know yet, Ellie said, but I want to start with my foster family, get them back together, find Jake, and then we'll go after the Triune. Stop them from doing what they've been planning. You already know it will be dangerous. You've already seen what that looks like. What about the dagger? Treadon asked. That's only part of Caden Bachman's plan, Rachel said. From what I've found out about XC energy, we've only broke the surface of what is really going on. I want to do more than run. Ellie dropped her eyes. And I want to choose a guardian who wants to fight alongside me, not protect me. Jaren groaned from behind them. I'm so glad I'm leaving. I do not want to be around to see the two of you make out. He pushed away from Rachel. She didn't try to hold him back. He tried to stand, but grimaced. Your leg, Ellie said, moving over to Jaren. I can help you now. Ellie slipped her hand into Jaren's. Jaren's hands clasped hers. His eyes opened wide, and he sucked air in through his teeth. Treadon could see the relief on Jaren's face. That was incredible. He put his full weight on the leg and smiled. Perfect. Wait, Ellie said, reaching out and pulling Jaren down to sit on the bleachers again. There's something in your head. I had brain surgery when I was a kid, but they said they fixed whatever was wrong. They never actually told me what they took out. A tumor or something. Has it been hurting? Ellie asked. Headaches, Jaren nodded. But it's probably more from stress. Ellie reached up and touched Jaren's cheek. Jaren closed his eyes and leaned into her hand. His mouth opened. A small sigh of relief escaped his lips. Ellie's face went pale. A red gash on her cheek opened like a fresh wound. Gabe let out a cry of warning. Treadon jumped over the fence and caught Ellie as she started to collapse. Abigail helped Treadon lower her to the bleacher. Her hand fell away from Jaren's face. Her color returned almost immediately, the cut closing on its own. What happened? Jaren asked. Treadon stood up and shoved Jaren. What do you mean, what happened? What did you do to her? Nothing. Jaren put his hand up in surrender, but his eyes examined his fingers like he was seeing them for the first time. I don't know what happened, but she did something. I haven't felt this good for a long time. Jaren exhaled out his mouth, lifting his chin. Almost like I can breathe again. He closed his eyes. Like I have been wearing earplugs, but now I can hear. He tilted his head to the side. Do you feel that? Jaren, don't, Gabe said. Abigail put her hand to her mouth, staring at Jaren with wide eyes. Jaren didn't seem to be listening to them. He listened to something far away, or deep underground. He put his hands out to the side. The ground started to shake. A loud rumbling filled the air. Car alarms went off in the parking lot. Some of the stadium lights shattered. He dropped his arms. Everything stopped shaking. Gabe looked at Abigail, and Abigail nodded. Treadon looked between them and then down at Ellie. It couldn't be. He'd known Jaren for over 2 years. I can help you, Gabe nodded, reaching out in a gesture of peace. If you come with me. Nah, I've got a date with my old lady, but we'll meet again. Jaren pursed his lips together, widening his stance. Gabe pulled keys out of his pocket and stepped to the side, gesturing toward the parking lot. The Aston Martin gleamed in the sunlight. New tires. Gabe tilted his head toward the car. It'll take you where you need to go. He turned back to face Jaren. But I want my keys back. They tossed keys at the same time, both wanting what the other had. Jaren looked at Rachel. I'll be back. He jogged over to his car and jumped in. He left 2 long tire streaks as he pulled out of the school parking lot. What just happened? Treadon asked, Ellie standing by his side. Whatever Ellie did to Jaren's mind, she changed something. Thank you for listening. Abigail squeezed Treadon's arms. Written he has a white aura by now. Tracy Daly. He's glowing. This audiobook what does that mean? Is copyrighted by Night Nook Publishing. Arm wrapped around Ellie's shoulder, ready to face the hordes of hell. For news about cover reveals, news releases, and exclusive content, his eyes off the sign up for the Night Nook Publishing newsletter at www.nightnookpublishing.com. Thank you for listening to Loss of the Unguarded, written and read by Tracy Daly. This audiobook is copyrighted by Night Nook Publishing 2023, all rights reserved. For news about cover reveals, news releases, and exclusive content, sign up for the Night Nook Publishing newsletter at www.nightnookpublishing.com.